right, we're here again. Time to take a look at the stories in the papers, the headlines across the national dailies. This is Freshly Pressed on the Smooth Breakfast here on Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. It's 31 minutes past 7 a.m. It's a beautiful Tuesday morning compared to how dreary and rainy it was yesterday. I mean, things can switch up, but my fingers are crossed that the weather is going to remain rain free, at least for the foreseeable future. Call me a soothsayer or something. I don't know, but let's see how things pans out. I really hope it's going to be a beautiful one for you. And I believe we're going to have such a great time on the show this morning. My name is Ayokunmi and you get to join us as always to share your feelings, share your thoughts, share your views on the stories we'll be talking about. So join us on WhatsApp and join us on YouTube as well. WhatsApp, the number is 0911 999 0981. It's a new number in case you don't have it and you have been wondering where exactly is Smooth. Well, Smooth is on this new line 0911 999 0981. We're also on YouTube. We're streaming live at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. Smooth 981 FM Lagos. So you can join the live stream there if that is your bag. You can leave your comments as well. I'll take them alongside the WhatsApp messages. All right, joining me to take a look at what's going on in the newspapers, giving analysis, and of course, perspective, shaking tables where necessary. Really, Chibuzor is in the studio. Good morning to you, Chibuzor. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Aya. Good morning, Lagos. It's my pleasure once again to be here um, today.
Yes, indeed. I'm actually glad you're able to be here. I'm glad the weather is, permitting because, with the rains that came down yesterday, it wasn't the easiest thing for people to move around, but we're thankful, to be here.
Yeah, we like the weather and we don't like the weather. It's it's two parts,
It's two parts, so it's two
two sides
parts.
of a coin.
I'm telling you. All right, let's begin our journey this morning in the Punch newspaper. And the President's Bola Tinubu has honored Nigeria's national women's basketball team, Tigers, with a reward package that includes $100,000 for each player, 50,000 for every member of the 11-man coaching and technical crew. The president also rewarded all team members and staff with a three-bedroom flat at Renewed Hope Estates. Now, in addition, the president conferred on the players and their technical crew the prestigious national honor of Officer of the Order of the Night. Now, all this was announced by Vice President Kashim Shettima at the presidential reception in their honor at the State House Banquet Hall in Abuja. This more or less mirrors a story that we took last week talking about the Falcons. I mean, virtually everything is the same, just that the announcement in this case was made by Vice President Kashim Shettima. There's something I'm going to with this particular story. It's going to be in the next story, but there was talk after the Super Falcons came back and then they were awarded, and we knew the Tigers were participating in the Afro Basket, which they've dominated for 5 years in a row now. And there was talk about would they get the same thing? Would it be different at the end of the day? Well, they can hold a mirror and see the Falcons in it. They've received more or less the same honors and the cash prizes and so on and so forth. And of course, there's talk back and forth over is this something that is going to continue with all our sports teams, or is just going to be sports teams that hit certain milestones? But looking at the numbers and everything, before we go into that next story, Chibuzor, what exactly are your thoughts here? That'll give some impetus into where it is we're going. The next story.
Okay, basically, like you said, we had this discussion last week, and as a sports fan, I would say, yeah, it's much deserved. It's well deserved. I think this is probably the first tournament in a while that I haven't watched. I didn't watch any of the games of any of the live broadcasts of the games for the Tigresses in a while. So I am a fan of the team. I think it's much deserved, particularly for this team, because it's a team that's basically almost self-sponsored themselves for a while now. They've
Mm.
done their own PR, they've done their own social media, they've done a lot of work to actually push their message while winning at the same time. They have a wonderful coach, Rennie Wakama, who's done a lot of work on the team.
Fantastic work.
Izzy Kalu is one of my favorite players. There's Macaulay. There's a lot of, the team deserves every accolade, every reception, every gift they get. Not just because of today, but because of what they put in to get this far. And they're not stopping, they're not stopping. I think where I have my concerns with, and I know one of the things I joked with a lot of friends yesterday or after they won was that I hope we have enough houses in this renewed open state at the rate at which we're going, because we're giving out almost all the houses. And I think last I checked, that estate is still under, but that's a different story for another day. It's under construction or something. But what I would say in terms of this, and I think the vice president basically made it clear that this is the direction that this particular government will be going in terms of honoring people who have, done well in sports or achieved made achievements in sports. That's one of the things that they want to really, really push forward. And I do like it. I like the direction it's going. But the questions I would ask, and I would maybe go take two steps back. During this tournament, there was one of the press conferences. The after the games they do the post match or post game press whatever, and
Right.
the coach Rennie was there. I think it was either Izini or Macaulay that was there. Some question was asked about their preparations, if they felt their preparations were adequate, and I think Coach Wakama basically cut off that question and asked the journalist that you should focus on questions around the performance of the team and the tournament, around the games. And when I watched that, I smiled, and I think anybody who's been involved with the Tigresses and basketball and female basketball, particularly in Nigeria, would understood why that smile would come out, because I think he just basically tried to avoid any bad PR.
Yeah.
Because like the Falcons, the Tigresses also have been a victim of a lot of things. Some years ago, they were almost prevented from going to, I think, was it the Olympics or the World Championships, because of the whims and caprices of a minister who just felt.
There have been times that they had to wash their jerseys.
They've had to, they've had to do a lot of things that they shouldn't do in a professional setting. And what am I speaking about? I'm not speaking just about the teams, but about the systems that generated teams. If you look at these teams, a lot of the ladies who are in this team, and we are seeing a bit of that also in the Falcons, are not brought up by the Nigerian system. There are people who have actually come through the American collegiate system, have played in the US, have played elsewhere, maybe in Canada or wherever, and have now held on to their Nigerian parentage or their Nigerian lineage and decided to represent Nigeria for whatever reason they have chosen. Now, and it's not a bad thing. If you're a Nigerian here, you're a Nigerian, and you're Nigerian anywhere in the world, you're a Nigerian, as long as you wish to be identified as a Nigerian, you hold a valid passport. I think my own question is, what are we doing to solve the underlying issues in our sports? Like every other thing that has to do with human development. How are we funding it? What is our roadmap? Who are the people we've put in charge? There are things like training, there's funding, there are facilities. The National Stadium is a glorified beer parlor these days. The Abuja Stadium only gets a revamp whenever there's a major tournament coming, and a lot that also have is the same story for a lot of the other stadiums. And forget even the big stadiums. In the neighborhoods, where are the sports facilities? This is holidays now. A lot of kids and parents
Sports
having to
parks
spend.
and
There
so
are
on
no
and so
parks for the
forth.
kids to go out to. The parents are spending a lot of money doing summer schools, having to look for private individuals to come in. It's not a bad thing, but there needs to be some concerted effort. There needs to be some program. There needs to be some planning. But like most things that are Nigerian today, and unfortunately so, there does not appear, and I use the word appear, to be any plan that the people can reach out to say, this is what is happening. Morocco just hosted the WAFCON. I was in Morocco years ago.
For the second
For
time.
the second time. And they have hosted, I think they're hosting the male tournament later. Afterwards.
I think they're hosting next WAFCON as well or something.
I think they're hosting the AFCON and maybe the next WAFCON. That is not by chance.
Right.
South Africa also did the same thing. It's not by chance. Even if you go to countries like Senegal, you go to Cote d'Ivoire, you see a lot of things that make you wonder, why do we even call ourselves giants? That I think it's only basically when you look at why we achieve a lot of what we achieve is basically because we have the numbers that we have, and it's just probability and chance.
Right. I'm actually glad you touched on facilities and everything surrounding it, because I was going to ask. Wouldn't it be a good idea to? I'm not saying that these athletes don't deserve all these things, but looking at the structures that should breed these athletes on a regular basis that we don't have. I was going to ask, if it will make a lot of sense to channel a lot of these funds and everything into development, because when it comes to developmental sports, I'm sorry, Nigeria is not there at all. And you rightly mentioned a lot of these players, talking about the Tigress, even some of the players in the
And
Falcons
the
as well,
Falcons.
they are not products of developmental stages in Nigeria. They aren't, and that's just the truth of the matter.
The Falcons are slightly better because football is, there's a reason why we all play football, or we've all had the opportunity of playing football. It's the easiest, cheapest game to play. You need something round. It doesn't need to bounce. It doesn't need to be expensive. It doesn't need to be fancy.
That seems to be
You need
rough.
some space. Back in the days, we used to use, even in school, we had the old Jacondi buildings where we would play against the wall and all that. And that's all. For sports like basketball, you need to get a good basketball. You need to get a court. You need to get a rim. Those things are expensive. It requires investment. So that's why you see less of those kind of things in other sports where you need investments because of we are not deliberate. So, and you said the truth is that those monies, the girl, the ladies, sorry, deserve every dime they get. What and the fact that we can, it's we can chew and talk at the same time. It's chew and walk at the same time. The funding and the gifts they get are not mutually exclusive. I would have rather preferred that if the ladies got, when players go into competitions, right? They get things like bonuses, game bonuses, they get their allowances. And if those things are always paid on time, if those things are paid in commensurate value to all, standardized and paid as all that teams and sports getting it, and you would not have to do this big splash at the end of the day. But we like to make splashes. This is a great opportunity for PR by the government, by public enterprises, and please, ladies, cash your checks. Thank you very much.
Cash your checks. All right, now, like I mentioned earlier on, that there's a reason that story was at the top, because it just takes us, I don't know if it's nicely or otherwise, into this next story. Hence, this has been Daily Trust, where it says that scores of retired soldiers who voluntarily exited the Nigerian army on Monday shut down the main entrance to the headquarters of the Ministry of Finance. Now, the protest, which commenced at about 10:15 a.m., witnessed the presence of heavy security personnel drawn from the military, the police, and the Department of State Services as well, apparently to prevent a breakdown of law and order. Now, the Daily Trust reports that retired security personnel from both the police and army, they have staged protests in the nation's capital more than 3 times within the last 7 months. So if you remember, just a few weeks ago, retired police officers stormed the force headquarters in Abuja over what they described as killing contributory pension scheme. Now, one of the leaders of the protest, Staff Sergeant Simon Ipu, cited the yet to be paid security department allowance and insurance as one of the reasons for the protest. Others include cutting off their gratuity, withholding their 4 month salaries when they tendered their resignation as well. Now, a lot of things have been said. Looking at the first story, we talked about concerning the Falcons, the Tigress, the huge amounts of monies that are going to be gifted them, and so on. We talked about the police, the retired police personnel who went on strike a couple of weeks ago. We talked about nurses who went on strike. We talked about doctors. Now we're talking about retired military personnel as well. I mean, like you said, we should be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. What is sauce for the goose needs to be sauce for the gander, bearing in mind the sort of sacrifices and what these individuals do when it comes to the collective development and protection and so on of the country. They give a lot. Shouldn't this be something that is given to them without even blinking once, let alone twice?
Um, I think you said it all. I don't really think there's anything to be said added to this. I think one of the ugliest things you can do to a Nigerian or a human being is withhold them the gifts of their labor when they have retired. Now, these guys have served, whichever way you want to do. They were in sacked, they were asked to, they were retired, or they got to whatever retirement point, and there were specific benefits or things that were put in their contracts when they joined the forces or have been added to their contracts over the years, right? And now they have retired and they expect that they should be able to get this. Now, I do not expect that we are voting funds to pay retirement benefits for these people for this year. I do expect that this is something that should have been, there's someone who's responsible for taking care of this.
Mhm.
This money should have been budgeted, or if there's a shortage or shortfall in this money, this should have been clearly spoken out to and actions taken to remedy this. You know, one of the comments was spoken about their contributory pensions, which for me tells me that they did contribute into this pension scheme. So it's rather sad that we are coming here today and they have to actually go on and protest. And that is minus the what you tend to see in a lot of places. And this is for me, this is from personal experience. I don't know if it's changed a bit now. I do hope it's changed because I do hope people are getting, as people are more bank, where you have to drag old people who have, I want to use old people who have retired. You have to drag them almost every other month or every other period after you've held their money for for months, and you now ask them they need to come and do identification, they need to come and do verification before you pay them what they are owed. Simply because you have your own organizational institutional issues, because it's not their problem if you don't know who, if today we are still struggling with who's alive and who is dead in this country, because basically when you were born you should get registered, when you die person should be registered, all that should sink into Pala record, so whoever is managing, for instance, the pensions, whatever, has an idea who has died and knock them off their list or give them their final benefits, or whoever those things should be things that we should have, working. But we don't have them working, and what you have people having to pay the price. So they are withholding their monies, they have to come out and protest for their monies. You are holding what they say, the claim also is that they are allegedly being held, their salaries for 4 months have been held back after they tendered their resignations. They cut off their gratuity, although gratuity is obviously something that you don't see a lot in private sector these days, if at all. But these are things that are their benefits. You basically promise them that they will be paid these days in their contract. So I do hope at some point that somebody steps in and pays. And it's rather sad that whenever press are carrying these stories, they say they try and reach out to spokespeople of particular entities before they go live with these stories, and you always, especially when they're controversial stories, they were not able to reach the person for comment.
You never get responses.
And my question is, why do those offices exist? Why are those people there if they cannot comment or they are not ready to respond? Because immediately these guys showed up or were coming to go and protest, I do expect that all hands should have come on deck from the Nigerian army and everybody responsible for this. Everybody should have even prepared whatever press statement they were going to give. A response to what they wanted should have been ready. But hey, this is Nigeria. Let's keep moving.
This is Nigeria. Let's keep moving. Where do you stand on these issues? Let us know. Send those messages in to us on WhatsApp, 0911 999 That is the number. This is a message from, let me see here. Is this, yeah, Ade in Lagos. Ade says, congrats to the Falcons and the Tigers as well. But the president has set a bad precedent by giving the Falcons $100,000 and now the Falcons as well. Sorry, and the Tigers as well. He won't lower the bar because of his ego. Remember what Herod did to John the Baptist because of Herod's daughter. While doctors and nurses, police, the military are on strike and protesting because of lack of payments and poor facilities. You can see that this government is not the people of Nigerians, but for their frivolities and luxury as well as eye service, and because of the 2027 elections in view as well. Interesting. So also talking about the 1 billion donated by the First Lady and so on. Is that Nigeria's money? Is that her money? I don't know. I'm not privy to the purses, so I really cannot say. But I'll leave that to you, Ade. Let's head into the Vanguard right now, Chibuzor. Let's talk about other important matters. Education is what I'm referring to. Now, the West African Senior School Certificate Examination, that's the WASCI, results have been released, and the figures are in. Out of the 1,969,313 candidates who sat for the examinations, only 545 candidates representing 38.32% obtained credits and above in a minimum of 5 subjects, including English language and mathematics. Now, in the 2024 examination, 72.12% of candidates obtained credits and above in a minimum of 5 subjects, including English and math. So this year's results clearly show a significant decline in performance. Now, we can look at this in a myriad of ways. We can we talked about jam as well, the numbers dropping and so on. We said a lot of things. Um, if we remember, in this year's examinations, there was an incident where it was said the English language paper had leaked, and instead of the exam being cancelled, the they pushed on, and exams were held in all sorts of funny conditions in the evening, late at night, no power, torches, and so on. Now, we can talk about the individuals in question, but should we also bring those external factors to bear when we're taking a look at these numbers we're seeing for this year's examination?
I don't think we can divorce any of the factors. It's we need to look at. If I was the minister for education to start with, when these numbers came out, when these numbers came out, and putting it side by side with what came out during the jam results, I would be I would be spending a chunk of today and probably even calling my direct reports to have a strategic session and discuss what is happening or how bad things are. So you raised the factor. There is one, and I think I'll add on another factor. There's one that the individuals, the children, the kids, the people who write actually write, or whoever the candidates, because obviously even the adults are writing this. Anybody who needs to get through the system will write this. So the candidates are one point, are one part. There is the system. The system, which is the system for the examination, is another part. So the examination is one part, and the standards around the examination. And then there's also the larger system of education in Nigeria and the facilities that we are using to drive our future, because our educated population is our future,
Mm.
whichever way you want to see it, and I have particular views about our educational system, and a lot of some people will disagree with me, but that's a discussion for another day. I don't think we've invested enough into education. I think, well, and that's not different from most other sectors that are important in this country. I think we've played a lot of, we've basically, there are some things that when I talk to some people, say, the child will be, just put the child there, after all, this one's came out well, they will go, they will come out well. And unfortunately, I think it's that anyhowness that is guiding, that is pushing some of the results that we are seeing today. Because even from the parents, if you don't know any better as a parent, you would be anyhow. The schools are anyhow. The system is anyhow. We don't, we're not talking about curriculum today, because we can debate about the curriculum from morning till night. But when you have these numbers coming out as people have passed, because don't forget, your WASCI is a combination of your, well, it should be a combination of 6 years of study. It's actually a combination of your last, particularly reference your last 3 years of study in the secondary school. So it's not just a 1 month, 1 year event. In fact, I remember back in the day, my belief when I was in school was that if you are not ready to write your WASCI by the time you are done with your SS2, then it's a struggle expecting that you make miracles in the last year. It's possible, but it's a struggle. But that also speaks to the kind of schools that we have. Do they have the right equipment? Do they have the right facilities? Do they have the right teachers and teaching methodologies? So there's a lot of things to be dissected from this. But you've also spoken about the conditions of these exams. We had papers that were running into the middle of the night with poor lighting, poor facility. Even it would test the mental fortitude of any student. Talk less of their eyesight, but even their mental fortitude. Imagine students who've been waiting to write a paper since the early hours of the day. Has probably not left the venue because probably his paper has kept him. They've been shifting his paper, so he doesn't know when his paper is going to happen, and he has to write in the middle of the night. You have to give some allowance for the conditions into the results of the outcomes of that exam. But we take a lot of things for granted, and we keep taking a lot of things for granted. What I do hope, and if wishes were horses, beggars would ride, is that the minister and everybody around, who are responsible for this system, will actually sit down on the table and say, what exactly has gone wrong, and maybe we can get some actionable ideas and actionable things to work on to actually move us forward. Because this is not acceptable. This is less than 40%.
Yeah,
I have been part of this exam before, and I do know that a big chunk of it is the system failing the youth of the country, because the system does not even prepare. You don't, in a part of this country, you don't even have enough teachers to start with. They are highly dependent on the NYC and the youth corps. And the truth is that not everybody who's posted to those schools is interested in even giving out that service. So there are loads of problems that we can look at from top to bottom, even weakening of standards. There are places where people basically erode the standards so that people can keep on moving on because it just makes sense for them to move on without actually focusing on the root cause. So there's a lot of things to dissect in this matter, but hey, we only have the time we have here.
We only have the time we have here. And talking about the time we have here, we need to run into this story in the Vanguard. Sorry, in the Guardian. I beg your pardon. Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Benjamin Kalu, has said that the Parliament will vote on the special seats bill alongside other crucial constitutional amendment bills upon resumption of plenary in October, emphasizing the importance of continued advocacy for the special seats bill. Now, it's worth recalling that the National Assembly recently adjourned its plenary session for the annual vacation to resume in September. Because of time, I'll actually pause there. First of all, I don't know what their annual vacationing for. I mean, what exactly are they doing to start it? But different story for another day. My question is, do we really need a special seats bill? Is that the solution to the issues?
So I would, when it comes to these questions like this, I would sit on both sides of the fence, and we should not need a special seats bill. We should not need it. That's what I would say. But unfortunately, we have a system that is so interesting, so convoluted, that does not allow typically for the it doesn't allow thinking with the emergence of ladies or women into positions, or not doesn't it doesn't allow, but it makes it harder because of the hoops they're expected to join and the amounts of money they're expected to spend. You know, it makes it quite hard and challenging for women to emerge. So, like every other affirmative action, maybe we need something to help correct this imbalance in a short term. And I do say short term because my challenge with a lot of affirmative actions is that you make these actions, there are no set times to revisit these actions to see their progress. There's no way to measure what to measure the effectiveness or otherwise of it, and to even reinforce it. Because if I set aside 20 chairs today and it's a 25% or whatever percent it is, shouldn't I be looking at a more 40 to 60%, or maybe 50% even at the end of the day? Shouldn't that way if you're looking for actual equality, shouldn't that way we go into? So if we do a token of 20% or whatever they want to come out with this bill today, would that be adequate for Nigeria? Not just for the women, for Nigeria's progress in the next 5-10 years, when the numbers of the ladies, for instance, and we do hear it, that the number of women in Nigeria exceed the men, because that also looks at who are we representing actually in our governments. So that is one thing that is one reason why I would say, you know what, I don't mind this happening.
Mm.
But also we need to look at what are the kind of candidates that will emerge from this system. So it also looks at, we need to look at the entire system in itself, both the one that brings out the males and the ones that brings out the females, to ensure that it's not just about tokenship, or we're having a token lady or token ladies who are sitting on the row, so sits, and badly behaved men will continue to remind them that they're there because of this. Like, we saw in the last senators issues, where they kept on reminding her that the reason why she was in the seat that she was because of her husband was their friend. We need
And
to
not
get,
because she
and not
deserved to
because she
be there.
deserved to be there. They kept on, oh, because of your husband, and it was sad to hear. But our biases and our biases, a mixture of how we are brought up, our cultures, our traditions, whatever, our bad behavior, keep showing up in this thing. So while I do support the bill in a way, I do hope that the bill is well structured to ensure that the objectives are achieved, and we also improve the quality of representation in the house. And to make it clear that this is not a token card being given to some random lady who's going to sit for somebody else, some other man's interest, but people who are going to adequately represent the electorate when they are chosen, if this goes through.
And that is the most important thing at the end of the day. All right, let me just take the messages here. This is Ajayi Oloniloa. He's in Magodo Jerry. Sherry says, it's just unfortunate that having served the country meritoriously, our retired police and military personnel, like other civil servants, have to embark on protests for them to get their entitlements. More disturbing is the fact that despite the hue and cries, nothing is being done to ameliorate the situation. Hmm, sad stuff, really. Joseph Meunier says, congratulations to the Tigers winning their fifth AfroBasket championship. Another win for the women. Just seventh, actually, fifth in a row. Yes, five peats. It's not easy. Social media and some parents are gradually destroying educational sectors. Today, you see parents, even down to primary school, try to fast track with all sorts of money exchanging hands to push children's progress. Also, certain social media influencers pushing the narrative that school is a scam, so they waste their time with all sorts of nonsense. May God help us. I had some educators in the studio a couple of weeks ago. The things they told me, go on, ridiculous. Oluwaseyi says, we don't need special seats for women. They have the numbers. They can get whatever they want if they decide to come together. Why beg for something you can take yourself? If they manage to come together, they would be unstoppable.
I think I want to chip in, and I know we're out of time, but I'll say something. And I pointed out the fact that Nigerian elections, if we were free and fair, and if we had sorted out education, then your line actually is what should be. Affirmative actions are temporary measures, as far as I'm concerned. As per our elections are so expensive. The people are so impoverished mentally, pocket wise, that all you need are money bags who will take over the system. We saw that in the last elections. We've seen it in the last elections, the elections before that. When people who control power, no, we're not talking about people who are just the voters. People who actually control the instruments of power, where streets are shut down, polling centers are moved, all sorts of shenanigans. Thugs are gotten to disrupt and fight so that the elections can be pushed or suspended. And by the time people come back, they hear they've actually voted in the absence. So there are a lot of things that happen. If we sort out the way our elections run and our systems, then obviously your lie, what you said is perfect. It's in perfect world. The women have more numbers than men. They should win whenever election they put forward their candidate.
All right, Fabian Inekwe says, when the teachers who should inspire and educate young minds are not motivated nor well remunerated, when time is wasted on putting an age limit for the admission of students rather than on how to improve learning and inculcate technology and so on, and when enough money is not put into the budget for education, the result is a drop in standards and in quality as well. All right, thank you for sharing those thoughts. It's been a pleasure hearing from you. It's also been a pleasure having you in the studio, Chibuzor, on a Tuesday. Thank you so very much for joining me.
Thank you very much, Ayo. Thank you very much, Lagos, for having me.
Alrighty. Lagos, Nigeria, the entire world, wherever it is that you are listening to us, keep it tuned to the Smooth Breakfast this morning. 8:15, we'll take a walk into the grapevine. It's going to be great entertainment, just and so much more. My name is Ayokunmi. Stay tuned.
The headlines, the stories, the news. In-depth analysis of national current affairs. Freshly pressed